I think as a PTA wanting to go into that role, it can seem scary. And not saying that you won't have any pushback or issues with that, just depending on who you're working with. But if you just stay true to yourself and, hey, I'm here to help and grow myself and other clinicians around me, really speak positively into that clinic or leadership role, I think that it really makes a big impact.
Today's guest is a powerhouse PTA that proves that leadership isn't about titles, it's about heart, hustle, and showing up fully. Since graduating in 2018, Macy has worked in outpatient acute and inpatient rehab, also while leading clinics, mentoring students, serving on boards and committees across Alabama. She's a clinical instructor, a PTA alternate delegate, and a fierce advocate for PTA growth and education. Outside of the clinic, she's a women's ministry leader, a certified natural health practitioner, and a foster dog mom who has given nearly 20 pups a second chance. She's here to talk about leadership, burnout, certification, and what it really means to live a PTA plus life. So we welcome to the show, Macy. And as always, thank you for listening. Hi, Macy. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. You and I have been, I would say we've been friends and acquaintances for a couple of years now. You and I did a little bit of work with APTA. You were the social media person for a while for the PTAs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you and I kind of started some conversations back then. I was on the PTA Council steering group and you were working on that. And so we had the chance to kind of cross paths before that. But you have always been a rock star, and I noticed that very early on. You are from the great state of Alabama, is that correct?
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, yes. I am not well versed in all of that. I think that's football language, isn't it?
It is football language.
Okay, well, I am not a football person, but see, I recognize that, and I also recognize that you've had some really great, amazing mentors from Alabama. Previous guest, Amy Hamill-Smith, or Amy Smith Hamill, I'm saying it wrong. She's been a great mentor to me as well, and I think also to you.
Yeah, she is a rock star. She was really the one that helped jumpstart my whole APTA journey, and has been there as like somebody that I can message for questions, and just a constant mentor, which is great.
Yeah, we need those people in our lives, don't we?
Yeah,
we can turn to and go, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Help me, give me some direction.
Yes, for sure.
All right, Macy. So Macy Frederick Rogers, correct?
Correct.
We were just talking before I hit record. So this is like a kind of semi-congratulations because you're freshly married. I wouldn't say newly married. It's been a few years, but freshly married. So some people know you by Macy Rogers, but you are still technically Macy Frederick Rogers, at least for now, right?
Right, for now.
Yes, yeah. And your husband, this has nothing to do with podcasts, but he likes to ride motocross. And so I kind of have a soft spot for that because my boys like to ride. They actually do hare scrambles, not motocross, but so you and I have a connection there as well, watching our hearts go speeding off into the great abyss. And
yes, it can be nerve-wracking for sure. But the motocross community is awesome. Everybody's, very family oriented and helps each other out, which is great to be a part of. So we really enjoy with our off time going and spending that with all of our moto friends.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my boys love it too. And I know that there's somebody who has their eye on them all the time. So definitely I'm not for a weak person to sit there and watch, but it's definitely an interesting sport. So yeah, so you and I have a little bit of connection there as well. So Macy, I'm going to go ahead and let you tell our audience a little bit about who you are. And we're going to dive into a lot of what you currently do, because this is one of the reasons why you and I connected. I see that you're doing some really amazing things in your role, your newer role with ATI. So we're going to talk about that as well. But if you can give us like the Cliff's Notes version of who Macy is.
All right. So I graduated PTA school in 2018 from Jefferson State Community College. Really, really great program, great teachers that really helped shape and guide, my skill level and my ambition for the PTA profession altogether. Since then, I have worked outpatient and acute care and inpatient PRN. So that was really big for me to be able to keep up both skill sets, both inpatient and outpatient. And having the inpatient job helps translate whenever you have a, post stroke or, the patient's not, or they're needing inpatient or skilled nursing, but they need outpatient. So you need somebody that has that skill and kind of knows where it goes from beginning to end. And since then, I've been clinic director at now 3 different companies, which has been great for a PTA career. Before I graduated PTA school, did have a few different management roles just in my normal retail and restaurant service experience. I think that learning those skills at a younger age really helped push me into leadership in the PTA realm as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you wear a lot of hats. So, clinic director, excuse me. Is that the title of your new role? Clinic director?
Well, so I've been a clinic director for ATI now for a year. I just recently in the past couple weeks became multi-site clinic director. So I have a brick and mortar, and then we also have clinics in our high schools, providing access to high school students, middle school students will come to just during the school day, before, after school, just to keep them, happy and healthy for all their sporting needs throughout the year. So we're getting, prepared and ready for the fall because that's our busy time. So just got that a couple weeks ago. So it's been great. The Helena High School is actually where I graduated from. It was their first graduating senior class. So it's really came full circle to be back, and I'm super excited about that opportunity.
Yeah. ATI has definitely provided you with a lot of opportunity. And this is something that I've recognized about ATI for a while is they do create clinical leadership paths for PTs and PTAs or other professionals. Just it seems like there's a lot of different routes that you can go. And it seems like this is a company that is investing in the growth of their own professionals. So that's something that I've always kind of been impressed by with ATI. But you're also a ministry leader. You're also a advisory board member. Do you foster dogs?
I do foster dogs. Yeah, in the past 2 years we've had about, yes, so I have 2 of my own personal dogs, and then we have had in our home in the past 2 years, a little over 2 years, 20 different foster dogs. So it's awesome. Just seeing them be able to connect to their homes and families and stuff and giving them a second chance from shelters or abandonment on the side of the street. It's really cool to, they come to me and they're scared and they're unsure and they don't really know how to be a dog, majority of them, and haven't had like consistent love and care. So it's really cool to be able to give that to them and then see them have their personality and get comfortable and then connect them to great homes. So it's very, I'm an animal lover in general, but dogs have a special place in my heart for sure.
Oh, and it sounds like they're just drawn to you. I have a few pets myself, a couple dogs, a random cat that kind of adopted me, and some backyard chickens, things like that. But it's so funny because I always say every time I go for a run, it's like there's this random cat who starts running with me or something. And I'm like, where did you come from? Like, you can't follow me. I don't have the room and the space to take any more animals in at the moment. So
yeah, they find you for sure.
Oh yeah, it's like they track you down, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you wear a lot of different hats and you play a lot of different roles. So what would you define leadership as? Like, what does that look like in the world of PTAs in your eyes?
So leadership to me, and the main reason why I wanted to become a leader was the investment in people. So, and a people grower. So I want people that are under me or coworkers, the same level as me, to help grow them and invest in them to make them even better than what I am. So seeing like with my staff, I'd good look and say, okay, hey, what is your career goals? What's your personal goals outside of work? And if it's, hey, I want to run a 5K. Okay, like how can I support? Like, hey, did you run this week? Keeping track and just like really leading people to be the best they want to be. If they are wanting to get special certifications or interested in a certain part of PT, okay, let me use my connections. Let me get them like shadowing opportunities or somebody they can connect with and ask questions if I don't know the answer to. So it's really just as a profession, growing the people around you. And that is going to end up making the PT community so much stronger and so much better.
Yeah, and you actually stepped into a lot of these leadership roles pretty early. I mean, so you graduated in 2018, like that's not that long ago, at least in my eyes. It seems like you're still kind of a baby in the profession as far as years ago. So what would you say to somebody who's maybe pretty new, but maybe kind of has that desire? So like they're curious about leadership, but they don't really know where to start. Like, what direction would you point them in right now? I would still say semi-young professional yourself, or early professional anyways.
Yeah. And how I got started with it was I was just curious. So I messaged some people from APTA Alabama and I was like, hey, I don't know if I want to serve or not, but I want to know what y'all do and find out more information about that. And then once I sat in on a couple of meetings and stuff, and I was like, wow, like they do a lot of work and it's very important work. And, that really led me to wanting to serve and then going into those leadership roles, filling spots that needed to be filled, and people, that care. So, never to be afraid to ask and to be curious. It doesn't mean that, hey, if I ask this person, about what they do or, hey, what it takes to be a clinic director, that doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck as that, like it's good to explore and just see, and you're going to find within yourself what you're passionate about and what you can contribute. So really all of my goals, I've found somebody that was doing what I wanted to do or doing something that I was curious about, and really just latching onto them, asking questions and, hey, how did you do that? And I think that we get, as a person, it's easy to get stuck in like, well, I just clock in, clock out, treat people, and like that's all my job can be or will be. But, that's not true. And the thing is too, is like, it's not going to just fall in your lap majority of the time. They can say, hey, you have great qualities and stuff, but unless you show interest in being more, most of the time people don't come to you and just like, hey, do you want to do this? Like you have to take that leap of faith too. So, just asking questions and, surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you and doing things that you want to grow to learn to do is really has been a big development for me personally.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of took a very similar approach that you did. I wasn't necessarily looking for any kind of leadership roles, but in my eyes, I wanted to know who the people were that were leading, especially like in the PTA realm. And in some ways kind of selfish, like, so what exactly are you doing for me? How do I know that you're representing the needs of PTAs around the state of Ohio or at the national level? So in some ways it was a little bit selfish for me to kind of dig in and ask questions. But also it led to other opportunities. Right. And again, I wasn't necessarily going in saying, hey, I want to do this sometime down the road or anything like that. But just getting yourself in that proximity and close to other people who are kind of like those movers and shakers in the profession gets you a little bit closer to the initiatives that are happening at a national level or at a state level. And then you can kind of understand it a little bit better, exactly what it is that they're doing for you. Yes. And I think that's okay. I mean, now we're talking about a profession versus like politics here, of course, but when you vote for somebody in an election, you do your research ahead of time and you want to know what is it that you're going to bring to my community that's going to help me, right? So it's okay for us to ask these kind of questions about the leaders in our profession.
Right. And that's fair, because I was concerned about the PTA reimbursement cuts. And I was like, what's that going to mean for my profession? Do I need to try to get back to school? Like, just the anxious person in me. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? And that's what led me. I'm like, okay, like, what is APTA doing to be able to fight these reimbursement cuts? Why are these reimbursement cuts happening? Those types of things. And that's what really, I was curious. I'm like, okay, like, what are y'all doing? And then I saw how much actually really goes into everything and how long processes of things take. And it's not just as easy as having like one discussion with one person and it all being solved. It's a lot more in depth than I think that for the people that do all that work get credit for. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And I like now the timeline is kind of making sense in my head for you. I know we already mentioned Amy, and hi, Amy. Your name is being brought up a lot on this podcast. That she was actually the chief delegate for the PTA caucus in 2018 at that time when the reimbursement cuts came for PTAs. And there was a lot of negative feedback and a lot of negative pushback from people thinking that APTA actually did this to us.
Right.
Excuse me. And that wasn't the case at all. So Amy, she did a great job of really like leading the caucus through that time and kind of really standing up for what really had happened. The things that had happened behind closed doors really had very little to do with the American Physical Therapy Association and had very little to do with PTAs. It was just kind of like an established version of payment that the government saw. And of course, the government doesn't know. This is another thing that we tend to like get really confused when it comes to advocacy. We cannot assume that people in our government know what we are and what we do. And I think that we do that a lot. We just assume that everybody knows what physical therapy is and everybody knows the difference between a PT and a PTA, but that's not the case. So, for us to expect that somebody in a room in Washington, D.C. somewhere working for our government understands the needs of our profession is not true, which is why we need advocacy, right?
Right, for sure.
Got to be willing to go and teach somebody about what we are and what we do. Otherwise, they'll just continue to assume that it's okay to give PTAs cuts.
Yep.
Works for other professions. Why wouldn't it work for this one, right?
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So a burnout. Let's talk about burnout. I have an issue with the word burnout. So I was just talking to a friend about this last week, and I know my perspective on burnout and what we can do about burnout. But someone like you're a high achiever. You're an early professional in my eyes, still young in the profession, still kind of like that high achiever, like you're reaching for the stars and you want to, make a difference and make an impact. What have you learned about balancing between that leading in clinic, leading in the profession, and then still showing up for your outside of the clinic life?
Yeah, so a lot of it is calendars and scheduling and, being because you're a clinic director and all these leadership roles and stuff for your job, but you're also a leader in your own life. So I kind of look at my personal life as me managing it as well. So I have calendars, like my husband and I put date nights on the calendars, or if we want to go and hang out with this friend, it's put on the calendar, and then I'm moving whatever else around that or not scheduling other things that would conflict with that, because you do have to have things that you enjoy. So especially for our profession, we're givers. We spend a lot of time with our patients. How can I help you? And it goes like way beyond just, manual therapy of bending their knee and exercises. You're listening to, whatever. We're meeting people at their hardest parts of their life. They're used to going and running and jumping and doing all these things, and they're not able to do those. So to me, it's important to make sure that I'm filling my personal cup and making sure like spending time with my family and spending time with my husband and, spending time with friends and traveling and, having those breaks. So that way my cup is full to be able to give to other people. Now, it's not like a cookie cutter, every week looks different. So, and every week's needs are different, but I'm still making sure that I'm, scheduling those different things. My calendar looks like a rainbow threw up on it. So like all my church things are a certain color, a PTA things are a certain color, work's a certain color. And it really helps me visualize, like, when I look at my week or even look at the month, I'm like, okay, how much red stuff do I have on here? How much purple stuff do I have on there? And it, like, color wise, I can say, okay,
yeah. Or my color's balanced, right?
Yeah, I'm missing this color. Let me add some more of that color in there. So it's really just organization. Being the owner of your own time, trying not to let, work bleed out of work hours. And then also, but also being there for your staff. So there's definitely a balance there for it. But, if you're working ahead, prepping ahead, not waiting to like the day of or the day before to, work on this project or prepare for this meeting, it really does help a lot with being able just to have, evenings, afternoons off, weekends and stuff. And our company does really, really, ATI does really, really well about, making sure that all the clinicians have that work-life balance. And they provide very good for us, like, time to be able to replenish ourselves, to be able to be the best and show up to work our best, to be able to treat our patients the best. So they've really helped me out a lot with changing companies and stuff. And they've really been a blessing to be able to allow me to have that balance, to be able to do all the extra things that I also want to do, which has been really, really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that when we talk about burnout, a lot of it has to do with that whole, are you plugging yourself into the things that bring you joy? And I think that we get it confused a lot of times with, or we'll label it as like, well, burnout is just so prevalent in healthcare. Or burnout is so prevalent in physical therapy. Like, you hear that a lot. And I think that you're right on the money when you mentioned that you were concerned about the cuts in physical therapy, and you were like, well, what do I do? Like, is my career going to be here down the road? But I would say the same thing could be true for burnout. You hear a lot of people talking about it before they even get into the profession. Like, well, what am I going to do about burnout? And how am I going to, mitigate this in whatever way? But I think if you can find the things that you can plug into that bring you joy, and again, keeping that balance in your life, I think you can avoid it to some extent. But I also think that this isn't just a PT problem. I mean, you can get burnout in any career that you pick. Name a career, and I'm sure you can find somebody who's like, yeah, I'm kind of burnt out. I work in HVAC, I get burnout. I work in whatever field, you can fill in the blank, but getting yourself plugged into the things that make you happy and taking that time can help mitigate. Also, mentorship. Like, if you're feeling lost, find somebody to talk to. I'm sure somebody else is going through a very similar thing that you are, and they might be able to kind of just maybe not even give you advice, but just listen to you and say, yeah, your concerns are valid and real.
Yeah. For me, it's been like, because I'm in my career in general, I haven't been great about taking PTO and feeling like, oh, I need to be at work. And now I'm like, okay, like, everything, like, all the policies, like, procedures and stuff are in place, or this place is not going to burn down if I'm not here for 8 hours. And using that time to really, feed into what I need, whether that's like a yoga class or sound bowl class or just the gym or just to sleep in or just to hang out with the dogs and stuff, and not really being able to use that full time that I have. Because for a long time, I was going to where I was only taking off like maybe 2-3 days a year, which is not great at all.
No, you need more time to yourself than that.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me personally, it was a learning curve because I felt like I had to be at work and like I have to, like, for things to be able to run well and stuff. And then now, being removed from that, I'm like, no, actually, like, I am empowering my employees. They know what to do. They're not going to feel lost because spend time with them. If they have questions or concerns, I talk to them about it before. I ask them questions like, hey, are you going to need anything from me, or do you need anything from me before I'm off for this period of time? And, really prepping for me to be off. So then it's less stressful for me and them. But just taking that time and using it to really be, for your, like what you need to do for yourself, take care of yourself. My favorite getaway is to travel. I'm always on the road trying to go see different places and do different things. So that's usually my disconnect, is going and exploring new areas of our beautiful world. So yeah, just take your time.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head as far as like trusting your team, right? So if you did the prep work in advance and your team knows what's expected out of them, then you should have comfort knowing that when you go, things are going to continue to move on, just as they always have. And this took me a long time to kind of find processes that worked in education, because especially in clinical education, I work with students, so they're in the clinic. And so when they get home in the evening is when they're going to want to reach out to me. And that's when I'm going home, is in the evening, So to find that balance of what's urgent, what needs to happen right now, what emails can I answer and answer adequately. And that was another thing that I always struggled with was, I might be able to reach back out to these people in the evening, but am I giving them really good, advice, or am I giving them a really good answer? It might be better for me to wait and respond first thing in the morning when I have more resources available at my fingertips. So, trying to find that balance of when it's appropriate and how much resources and processes that you set up ahead of time so that you can take that time and feel that you can trust them and they can trust you, that, hey, we all know our role. We know what we're supposed to be doing.
For sure.
Yeah. Speaking of roles, tell me a little bit about certifications and advanced proficiencies in physical therapy. So I think that oftentimes PTAs might kind of feel like they're not necessarily encouraged to do these things, or maybe have a direct path to find these things. So like, what kind of approach do you take when it comes to certifications and advanced education with PTAs?
So, honestly, I didn't know about advanced proficiency pathways. I was just digging on the APTA website, just seeing what all they had to offer, and found it. And, took the steps to getting my advanced proficiency in orthopedics. So now, I feel like a lot of students and newer grads don't know about the advanced proficiency pathways. So part of my job, so the membership committee chair for Alabama. So part of my job is to go to PTA schools and talk to those students, as well as I'm a CI, so have them as well, and like just showing them like, hey, this is an option for you to be able to advance, your career. It looks great on your resume. It helps with your continuing education, especially like because they have acute care, cardiovascular. There's geriatrics. There's so many different ones that you can get and be involved in. And you do have that mentorship aspect of it, which I love. So I think a lot of people in our profession graduate and think, okay, well, I'm just going to go work in the clinic and I'll take my CEUs every year. But there is a decent amount of certifications that you can get. Personally, I would like to see more. And that's one thing that I'm trying to advocate for, because, we're seeing a lot of the patients, the PTs eval and see some, but like we're really day to day seeing a lot of patients, and it would help to have those advanced certifications to be able to serve our patients better, instead of putting that on the PTs to have to teach us whatever skills and stuff they learn from their certifications, which is still beneficial and you still should do that. But that also gives us a gateway to be able to get more certifications and knowledge ourselves. So that's one thing that I'm really wanting to increase in our profession, and just the knowledge of like, hey, here's what already exists and what work can be done to get more higher education, more certifications for our profession as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we don't talk about it enough, the opportunities that are out there. I mean, I feel like I'm trying to do my part on PTA Plus, talking about a lot of the different certifications. I've brought on a lot of people who have either done or work or teach in these types of programs. There's many out there. It doesn't have to just be APTA's advanced proficiency pathways. It could be, I know Evidence in Motion has a bunch. There's a bunch of strength certifications out there that PTAs can take as well. So just really explore what's out there and what's a good fit for you, because one might not fit for another, but it's out there. You just kind of have to go out and find it. And I think that that's been a theme between our conversation right now, just since we've been talking for 29 minutes here, is that you went and sought certain things. You didn't wait for it to come and fall into your lap. You went and you found, hey, I know I want to do this, so I'm going to look in this direction. Or you got yourself into proximity of some of the things that you were curious about. You got to go find some things.
Yeah. And I feel like in life in general, there's some things that, fall in your lap and that was just meant to be, but majority of things don't. You have to be, the boss of your own life and what you want to learn and do, and, really reach out to those people and search for yourselves. Cause there's a lot of clinicians out there, so you're wanting to build yourself up and apart and, make our profession better.
Yeah, speaking of things that make you better, you have had the unique opportunity of working both in outpatient type settings and also in inpatient type settings. So how do you think that having the chance to work in these different settings has really shaped the way that you manage your teams and the way that you provide care?
Manage teams wise, really just listening to others, like what their concerns and stuff are. I like to have monthly conversations with people that I work with, like, hey, what's working well for you? What's not working well for you? Because they may see things that I don't see, or things that affect them that I don't see. And if you don't have those open conversations with people and how it's affecting their daily and how they do their job, then you're not really being a good leader. Because you're there really to support them, to make them the best that they can be. So seeing that in different settings, there's, obviously different needs between an inpatient rehab and acute care and outpatient. So, and especially if the outpatients that you're working in are different specialties. So my first clinic was a spinal specialty. My second clinic I worked at was a vestibular and orthopedics. And then where I'm at now is very heavy orthopedics and sports medicine. So, there's different needs for each of those settings, and just being able to listen to those people and, being just an employee, clinician working, like seeing how other leaders lead and how that affects people. I think I've learned a lot just from watching others and how the staff responds. Because a lot of those jobs I was just PRN at, and I loved them. Wouldn't change working for them for anything. But, you're able to look at different leadership styles and, really like be able to internalize, okay, like what kind of leader do I want to be? And even with, other colleagues, looking and seeing what they're doing and what works best for me and my team, and what is that person doing that's working really well that I can implement, and vice versa. So then just clinical wise, like I mentioned earlier, those skills crossing over. So you're going to get an outpatient clinic, somebody that's had a TBI or a stroke, that they're independent enough to where they don't need inpatient or skilled nursing facility care, but they still aren't where they want to be. So you see them in the outpatient clinic. So it's really cool to have that experience from when the injury first happens and being, where you're just teaching them to walk again or how to do bed mobility, and then going through to outpatient to where you're doing higher level skills. But I think it's given me an insight of where they come from, where they're at, that journey that the patient really goes through, and being compassionate for that. So a lot of them are very, very long journeys. And how can I help? How can I feed into and fill their cup up while I have them for the hour and a half that they're with me.
That's great advice. I always tell students that they can always learn something from a clinical experience, whether they label it as a good experience or a bad experience. So, I like to think that I connect our students to the best clinical opportunities that I possibly can. But I think inevitably there's going to be personality differences no matter where you go. So, someone's perception of a clinical experience could be amazing. And then another student can go and say, that was not a great experience for me. So I often try to tell them that there's something that you should be able to learn from this no matter what, whether you label it as good or bad. So when you come out of this, if it was not the best experience for you, what did you learn from it? Was there something that you say, you know what, I won't lead that way, or that's not the way that I'm going to provide care, or fill in the blanks, then it did teach you something, right? So, and that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad place to be. It just might not have been the best place for you to be. So, to try to take that with you and learn from it, I think that kind of parallels to what you're talking about with different leadership styles. So you had the opportunity to work in as PRN in several different clinics where you could see different leadership styles, right? And so you probably were able to kind of take pieces and parts of that and then make it your own. You made it Macy's way of being a leader in your future career, because you had the opportunity to kind of take these different pieces and parts that worked and then the things that maybe didn't work.
Right.
And I'm sure that's an evolving process.
It is. I think just, listening to people more than talking, and like really seeing like how things work, people's thoughts or feelings on things. Because a lot of times like people will say stuff and I'm like, well, I didn't even think of it like that. Or, they have different experiences on like how that affects them personally in their job that it wouldn't have affected me and I wouldn't have thought about. So I think as leaders, it's very important to be open access to your employees, doing check-ins on them, not like while they're treating patients or with a bunch of other people around, really one-on-one, and just seeing how they're doing and what you can serve to them to improve their work-life balance or ease their day, that kind of stuff. So just listening is a big, big takeaway.
That's we were not supposed to talk about House of Delegates on this podcast. It wasn't in our regimen of things that we were going to talk about. But since you brought up listening, I have found my opportunities to sit in House of Delegates over the last 4 or 5 years has really helped me become a better listener. In Ohio, so I'm the PTA council rep. I'm not. Sorry, I lied. I just rolled off June 30th, but I did go to House this year to wrap up my term and everything. But all these times that I've sat in with Ohio's delegation, you come to House and you think you have a good idea of what motions are being brought forward. And I don't think that people in our profession truly understand what is happening through our governmental system per se in APTA, and how hard these delegates work to try to get it right. You go in and you think, I know exactly where I stand on these motions, but then somebody comes to the mic and has a really powerful story and can absolutely change the way you were viewing something because of the stories that they had or the experiences that they had. And to me, it just drives home the importance of listening and hearing and not being ready to respond, but to take that information in and really process like, man, I've never thought about it in that light before.
Yeah, I think that's very important, just as a colleague to others and then also in leadership as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, something that could get a little bit tricky is a PTA leading PTs, and that's literally what you do all day long. So tell me a little bit about this dynamic. Like, what have you learned about earning respect and leading with confidence when there is that degree dynamic that's there?
I try, I get this question and stuff a lot. And, I really I've never had an issue with that dynamic before. I think that a a lot of the times I'm working alongside the people that I'm leading before I'm leading them. So me being respectable as a clinician, me being helpful as a clinician, listening to them as a clinician, and, showing them like my leadership is really to help them. Like, hey, what do you think about this and stuff, and like including them in on, like, I mean, obviously I get the ultimate, decision on that, but bringing them along in that decision as well. Like, hey, what do you think about this? And seeing what they think, instead of being like, in your face leadership. It's really take the family and team approach to that. So I really haven't had any issues with it. And I think as a PTA wanting to go into that role, it can seem scary. And not saying that you won't have any pushback or issues with that, just depending on who you're working with. But if you just stay true to yourself and, hey, I'm here to help and grow myself and other clinicians around me, really speak positively into that clinic or leadership role, I think that it really makes a big impact.
Yeah, and you're obviously very driven to continuously improve yourself and to continuously improve those around you. What kind of qualities do you think are essential for a PTA to have, not just to lead, but also to follow? That's something that I talk a little bit about on this podcast as well, is like, what does the followership model look like? Because by nature of our license, we are somewhat followers, but that doesn't mean that you're a lazy person or you're a lazy follower. Like, followership actually has a lot of skills that you have to have.
Yeah. So respect, I think, is a big one. And when it comes to patient care, a lot of times we're seeing patients more often than the PT that eval'd them. So, making sure that you're going in and checking in, hey, this is how this patient's doing. This is still an issue, or this is where the pain's like centralized to. What do you think about, X, Y, and Z exercises or modalities, or, bringing them alongside. So you're still following, but you're doing it in a respectful way instead of just going and like changing things on your own. And having those conversations and updates on those patients. So, really just being respectable all the way around, whether you're leading, following it. Respect goes a long way when you respect other people and their journeys. I know that when I go into a room, especially with all the clinic directors that I work with in my district, there's a lot of them that have more clinic director experience than I do, and they have more treatment experience than I do. And I really look at it as, okay, what tools do they have in their toolbox that I can learn to add to my toolbox? And, not being afraid to asking, hey, why are you making that decision? Or why are you choosing this treatment? Or if I suggest something and they're like, I don't think that'll work, then like, why do you think that won't work? And really having that in-depth conversation. So we try every week, we do every week, get through like all of our cases and, really connect with like PTs to PTAs and see how patients are doing. And I think that respect and communication is what makes us so successful with treating people and getting the outcomes that we get.
Yeah, that respect is, it's key, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, key.
You have to give respect, but you don't want to blindly follow either. So there's we also went to school. We also have different treatment experiences and seen different things. Like for me personally, with me working in inpatient and acute care and skilled nursing and all those, like that's added extra tools to my toolbox. So people that aren't comfortable with, drop foot or post-stroke stuff, they usually send them my way because they're like, she's comfortable with it. And, the gait belts and all that stuff doesn't really, freak her out, Yeah. So, making sure like you're playing to your team's like strengths and weaknesses and, having that respect for each other. I mean, you have to give it to get it, and, making sure that you're not just well, that's just what they said, like really understanding why you're having that discussion. And it really showcases too, like what our PTA knowledge is, and showing like, hey, like, well, actually they do know like more. Cause in my experience, a lot of PTs aren't really for sure on like, what do PTAs know?
What
What,
can I do? What do I
yeah.
do with this person?
Yeah, and I've been asked that before. Of like, it's like, hey, like I've never worked with a P like there, and especially like new grads, like I've never worked with a PTA. What are you allowed to do?
Mm-hmm.
And and not being like offended, like, oh my gosh, you don't know what PTAs do, but
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
using that as like a learning opportunity, because they're not going to work with me as a PTA forever. They're going to go and work with other PTAs as well. And I'll tell them like, okay, hey, like this is what I'm comfortable with doing. This is what I'm not comfortable with doing. And these are what my certifications are. And this is my like history of what I know to work with. And it really does help create that bond of, like even if it's a PT, they're like, hey, you have more clinical, you've seen this more
Mm-hmm.
than I've seen this
Mm-hmm.
clinically. What's your thoughts on this? And I think that's where like a lot of the respect comes from. But, not getting offended when they don't know. Like a lot of people just don't. And that's on us in the clinics to be able to say, hey, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking that initiative of I know how to do, this manual technique, or this is like knowledge based on this certain condition and stuff. Really showcasing what we're taught in school and what our experiences are.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I don't know if this is a good metaphor for the PT-PTA relationship or not, but I kind of view it as like a marriage. So we're doing a better job in education now than we ever have, of getting PT and PTA students together before they get into the clinic. But if you think about this, so you have your PT and your PTA, and they know nothing about each other. And then you throw them in a clinic together and you're like, okay, so now you're married and here's your baby that you have to take care of. And that's your patient, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like you said before, like if you don't know each other's strengths and weaknesses, how
Mm-hmm.
do we know who can take care of this child the best? Like how do we know who's going to give the best guidance and nutrition and things like that that's going to help our patient
Right.
get better, right? So I think we're doing a better job of allowing us to date each other
Yeah.
in earlier years as students and giving us those opportunities to talk to each other and learn from each other. I mean, things as simple as the type of textbooks that we use and the type of classes that we have. So I have found in my own experience, with PT and PTA students is when they start talking about the things that they're doing in school, they realize that there's not like this huge drastic difference. They're like, oh, you use the same textbook that I use. Like, I don't know if the PTA students thought that they had like some different, book that they would be using or whatever, but it typically is the same textbooks. It's the depth, it's the breadth, it's the depth and breadth of anatomy and the chemistry and things like that make a huge difference. But when it comes down to interventions, a lot of times the PTA students are a little more sharp on that right away. And that does tend to like impress that PT student. So we need to do a better job of dating each other at the beginning. And then we'll be able to take care of our patient a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the great things about ATL too is they do allow us to spend a lot of time just with each other as clinicians instead of like just throwing you in and having you go straight into patient care. My experience has been the clinic director that I had before. We went to dinner before I started and was like, hey, like, and just like wanted to learn more about me. It made me feel more comfortable on my first day. And then they knew more about, besides just the interview, they knew more about me, my personal life, and what my strengths and weaknesses and that sort of thing are too. And, having outside experiences than just the clinic itself. Like this past year we went, there's a company called Activate. It's fun, like games and stuff. You're running around. It's a lot of teamwork stuff, but we were able to do that with my clinic and the surrounding clinics from us. And that gave us a chance of like, hey, like we're having fun together. We're like communicating, to play this game together. So they offer a lot of those abilities, which I think helps a lot too, instead of just throwing people into clinics and then not really know each other, which is very beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. We got to get to know each other. Know our strengths and weaknesses. That's something I preach to my students all the time is if you can't explain your skill set to the PT, then how are they going to trust you to take care of that patient as well? And maybe you're not the best person to treat that patient right away. Like you talked about some of the strengths and weaknesses, how you tend to get a certain type of patient on your schedule versus someone else. And I found that to be very true when I was working in the clinic as well. There were certain types of diagnosis and patients that I thrived with, or that the patient thrived with me, maybe, instead, versus others. And I think it's okay for us to kind of talk about that stuff, get it out.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because at the end of the day, it's, about the patient getting the care that they need and, getting back to what they're wanting to do in their everyday life. So that's really the most important. So whether that's with you or somebody else in the clinical team, that's not, saying that, hey, you stink, that's really giving them to somebody that's, really good in that, and even like their age range, like, hey, this person is better with this age group or this age group. And then diagnoses and stuff for sure.
Yeah. So, ministry and mentorship obviously have played a really big role central in your life. So how do you see those two types of roles influence the way that you connect with people in the clinic? And that can include your patients as well.
I think just the compassion for it, I think realizing that, they're not just a total knee replacement there's a lot of extra things that go along with their journey in their life, and really taking that into consideration when you're treating them, and connecting with them on that. I have a lot of patients that will, lean into me about whatever personal stuff they have going on, as well as, we're working on their knee. So, being able to give guidance or, advice or, just saying, hey, like, I understand you, like that goes a long way. So I think with being in that ministry setting too, like there's a lot of people that have experiences that I haven't had, or I've had experiences they haven't had, but knowing and learning how to walk with people in those journeys has really helped in, how to show up for them the way that they need it the most. So the ministry part, it's been really cool, connecting with women. My age range is like 18 to 32, 34, roughly. So spending time with them, and, you have women that are single, engaged, newly married, mothers, all things. So it's really cool to be able to spend time with them and connect and learn from them as well. So I think that bringing that into the clinic is just having that compassion and really seeing the person as a full person, and not just, well, here's like, this total knee on my schedule, I'm going to go bend their knee and do these exercises. Really paying attention to the person as a whole, and really feeding into what they have going on, what their needs are, and listening to those.
Yeah, and I think that you've shared a good bit of stuff, at least that I've seen on LinkedIn and other social media, that really point to the person as a whole, as an individual, and not just kind of labeling them as whatever it is that they're going through or dealing with. I try to help my students understand that, and I try not to use that kind of language around them as far as like, okay, so here's your total knee replacement, like let's put a name first and let's put that person first, and then we can talk about the diagnosis, but you have a human being that's sitting in front of you.
Right. And, just in general, I did some research a few weeks ago about just the language that we use in the clinic. Made a post about, saying about your bad leg. You hear that a lot. Instead of like
your post today. Yeah.
Like your healing leg, like that, like just those little bitty swaps make a big difference, because you don't want them to have that negative connotation with whatever that they have going on. So, just little things like that. And it takes a little while to add that to your language, because a lot of the language that we have is learned from other clinicians and stuff, but just those little things have a really big impact. And when patients say it, I'm like, nope, that's not your bad leg. That's your healing leg. it's different.
Kind of a rewiring, right, of our the way that we speak and the way that we talk.
Yeah, more positive and like more journey focused, like, because you don't want them, graduated and like they're from therapy and their knee is doing great and wonderful, and then they're still calling it their bad knee. And I'm like, well, it's really not bad. Like, it's pretty strong. You got full range of motion and stuff, but they'll still carry that negative connotation with them beyond therapy. And, you don't really want that negativity in their speak. So yeah, I'll catch people like, that's not your bad leg. That's your healing leg. Like, it's a journey. And I think that puts in their mindset too of like, when, like, it's not going to be like bad forever. Like, we are working towards, healing and what goals that you have and want to do, whether that's like kneeling on the floor with your grandkids or, being able to get up from the floor, or going back fishing and walking up and down, banks and stuff. I mean, every individual person has different personal goals that they want to get back to. And, making sure that we're not, because they're like, well, I can't go do that because I have a bad leg. Like, you don't have a bad leg, you have a healing leg. So, the research on that was super cool. Just reading all the different articles and stuff on there, and seeing like how the psychological aspect of the, anatomy that we do. It was really cool.
Yeah, those words matter. And I think that now that we're really looking more towards like trauma-informed care as well, like the words that we use, saying words like bad or having that negative connotation can actually, make somebody feel super uncomfortable in your presence. And we don't want that to happen. We want people to be comfortable around us because we know that that's when they're going to buy in, and that's when they're going to start to improve, and we're going to have better outcomes and whatnot. So really watching what we say makes a huge difference with our patients. And really the way that we talk about ourselves and our team in front of the patient as well, especially when it comes to that PT PTA team dynamic. We've got to be building each other up, passing your patient off to the next person. You're going to love working with this person. They're very skilled. They have specialized training, fill in the blanks. But if we're lifting each other up and we're speaking of each other in these positive light, it's going to make a difference in the patient's eyes. They're going to feel more comfortable in your care.
Yes, for sure. And I think, putting like, hey, like the PT PTA, like, we're a team. So like we're discussing your care. We're on the same page, and like letting them know that. So, and then acknowledging, even if like that patient's not on my schedule that day, like still talking to them like, hey, how you doing? And, spending that like a couple of minutes just to check in with them, even though that you're not treating them that day. Really showing that team dynamic really helps the patients as well. That way they're not feeling they're getting passed like person to person, and, like knowing that as a group we care.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a tradition that I have on the show is that I always ask my guests to give me their plus point. So your plus point is whatever kind of fire you want to start, any kind of like wise words of advice that you want to pass on to the audience. Now's your chance. You can hop up on your soapbox. You can have the platform. It's all you.
I think for me, it's there's more. So there is more for our profession. There's more than just clocking in, clocking out, treating, and then feeling like you're done. Like, there's more growth to happen in your PTA career. Surround yourself with people that are doing what you want to do, or that you're curious about what they do and learning about it. You may spend time with them and say, hey, that's not for me, and that's cool, but you learned another part of our profession, which is really important. And then looking and saying, how can I do more for our profession? How can I serve more? I think that there's a lot of people that think like, oh, well, all this, like, PTAs are forgotten about, or, that kind of stuff. And I think if you get actually involved in a lot of the things that are shaping our PTA career, and we have more power in numbers. So, making sure like you're volunteering and that you're getting involved, asking questions and stuff, it's really going to help jumpstart and grow your career, as well as improving patient outcomes and the profession in general. Just making sure that you're really progressing, all together. So you don't think that you can't do it, because you can, and just being there, being there for each other and supporting each other, I think is going to be the biggest game changer for PTAs as a profession.
Well, everyone, you heard it right here from Macy, ministry leader, clinic director, patient advocate, advisory board member, foster dog mom, regular dog mom, all of these things that you fill in as the PTA plus role. So I really appreciate your time. Macy, where can people find you? Is there any social media that they can find you on, or any other way that they can get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is the best. I'm on LinkedIn every day. That has my email and all that on there as well. So just reach out with any questions. I love connecting and, being a mentor to others as well. So any questions or anything, I'm an open book.
Wonderful. She is great. She is a rock star. Everybody, you should reach out and connect with Macy. So Macy, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you joining the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks for listening to PTA Plus, the podcast for PTAs by PTAs. Subscribe, follow us on social, and share the show. Elevate yourself. This show is for educational purposes only. No clinical decision making should be made from its content. See you next time.